is a football Friday, a much anticipated football Friday here on Birds 365 because the countdown is on legitimately now. We're only talking a couple of days, 50 some odd hours to the 49ers and Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. Mac will be talking about it extensively for the next 2 hours, or at least Mac for 1 hour. Then Johnny Mac's got to get down to South Philadelphia for Eagles hands-on coverage, and Mark Farzetta will jump in for him. But we'll give you 2 hours of Eagles 49ers talk here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, know you were down there yesterday. The thing that concerns me about Eagle injuries, and everybody's got injuries at this time of year, but you got to deal with them, and the Eagles are maybe better equipped to deal with them, certainly than most teams, and maybe every team in the league with the depth they built up on this team. Does not look good for Fletcher Cox. Now, Fletcher Cox may throw on his cape and decide to play come Sunday, but has not participated in either of the first two practices. And you've been doing this for years, specifically this year with this team. If you don't make the walkthrough Wednesday and the practice Thursday, percentage chance Fletcher Cox is going to be able to go on Sunday.
Yeah, I would put it very low. I don't expect him to play, but I would put it a little bit higher than a typical player because of his status on the team and his veteran status and the fact that he doesn't need a lot of practice, to be honest. So I'd put it at 5% or less. I'll go up to 15% with Fletcher, but I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to play in the game, and you're right. I mean, it happens. They lost him for the Jets game, and they lost that game. So if you look at it from that perspective, that's the only game they lost. He's had a very good season, big part of everything. You are going to get Milton Williams back, so he wasn't there last week, so maybe that kind of mitigates it a little bit. But yeah, But as you mentioned, everybody's got injuries this time of year, and you just got to persevere the best you can. They've been doing it without Dallas Goedert. Don't expect Dallas to play again this week. Do expect him back next week at Dallas. Grant Calcaterra, don't expect him to play. So they have the tight end issues again. Zach Cunningham's not going to play. So I think you're going to see big nickel. I think everybody's talking about Zach Cunningham, Nick Morrow and Christian Ellis. I think you're going to see a lot of Kevin Byard, Sidney Brown, Reed Blankenship with Nick Morrow. Just a hunch, but I think that's what you're going to see a lot of, especially on key third down situations. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got injuries this time of year.
If you think they're going a little bit more big nickel than they usually do, which means, I don't know how you can describe it any other way, but going small, maybe going quick, but going small, who's going to be covering George Kittle for most of the plays in this upcoming game? If it's not going to be a linebacker trying to keep him near the line of scrimmage, is this a George Kittle game? Because the Eagles have had trouble with tight ends, period. And now they're facing off against one of the best ones in the NFL.
Yeah, it's always difficult. And you're right, they have struggled, but it's gotten a little bit better. And since Kevin's gotten here, Kevin Byard, he's kind of the tight end guy. So he's had success in the past in Tennessee, especially with Travis Kelce, and did a pretty good job on Travis. Did a pretty good job despite the deficiencies on defense against Buffalo. Did a pretty good job there, better than what it has been. So I expect that to continue. It's going to mainly be now, not every single time you're going to throw curveballs. You got to attack somebody like George Kittle in different ways, but
agreed.
It's going to be mainly his responsibility. And that's for the rest of the season. When you talk about tight ends and good tight ends, that's going to be Kevin Byard's job.
And we hope Byard's up to the task because I think Kittle is going to test him. All right, if you got Byard zeroing in on George Kittle, who's going to be the guy?
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem. I mean, that's the problem with this team. The Eagles get to learn how people have to deal with the Eagles this week. And it's like, and when the Eagles are healthy by what I mean by that. If you
Right.
try to take away A.J. Brown, as maybe people have done over the past couple of weeks, maybe it's A.J.'s thigh injury, whatever it might be. All of a sudden, Devontae Smith sparks up and has these big games. And when Dallas Goedert's in there, it might be Dallas Goedert. Now, when DeAndre Swift's in there, it might be DeAndre Swift on a jet sweep or a 36-yard gain, whatever he had against the Bills. And you're like, all right, what am I going to do? What am I going to take away? Well, it's the same thing here. If you're worried about taking away George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey might kill you. If you're worried about taking away both of those guys in the middle of the field, well, they got one of the best downfield receivers in football in Brandon Ayuk. And then you have Deebo Samuel, who can do everything. He can run the football from the backfield. He can take the short stuff and go yards after catch. He's a jet sweep manufactured touch guy. He can go down the field. He's a good receiver. He's one of the most versatile players in football. Yeah, pick your poison, Sean Desai. I would not want to be Sean Desai this week, to be honest. And the answer to all these questions, Jody, is get home. Get home on Brock Purdy. How did Dallas finally win the game last night? Micah Parsons getting home. They blew the coverage, by the way, for those people watching that game. DK Metcalf was wide open. Geno Smith just had no time to even ascertain the situation. That's what you have to do. You have to get home on the quarterback and make you're on the back seven.
And we've seen this. This is a scary thing to contemplate heading into this game. The Commanders this year came in with a mindset against the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to get the ball out of Sam Howell's hands as quickly as we possibly can, quickly as humanly possibly can. And Sam Howell threw for a lot of good yards against Philadelphia Eagles. Brock Purdy's a little bit better at it than the Commanders quarterback is. And that's why he is the least sacked quarterback in the National Football League. You come in with a game plan, get home, get to the quarterback, get pressure on the quarterback. Well, if he's getting it out of there in 1.2 seconds and some ridiculous number is when Purdy gets rid of the football, and the reason why he's only got 12 sacks for the entire year against how did you describe the overall offensive? Now you got to include Trent Williams in the San Francisco offensive line because he's part of it. He's a huge part of it. But then there's the other four players. Not good, below average. How did you describe the other
bad.
four?
Yeah, the other four are bad.
Out bad.
It's interesting. San Francisco might have the best roster in football. If they don't, they're probably right behind the Eagles. So they have a ton of good players all over the place. And I would say the best player they have, well, we always talk about best players. Who's the best pure football player? The best pure football player they have is Trent Williams. That's how good he is. And everybody else on the offensive line, not good. So, I mean, like I said, I've been saying all week, it might be a tough week for Josh Sweat, but it's not going to be a tough week for anybody else on the defensive front, and they need to take advantage of their matchups. And I go back to last night again. Geno Smith didn't get sacked on the last play. It's not about sacks. I always say it's speeding him up, didn't have a chance to do anything on that particular play. That's what I'm talking about. Now, you can't do that consistently. And San Francisco is going to score points. You're going to have to score points because they're going to score some points. But in big spots, that's what has to happen. And that's sort of, Dallas has a good defense, and they didn't have a good defensive night, to put it mildly. But in the big spots, whether it was DeMarcus Lawrence on fourth down, Micah Parsons at the end of the game, those guys made plays. That's sort of what's going to have to happen here. But people are going to score some points in this game.
Right, because despite the fact that the other four offensive linemen the 49ers have, who are not good, somehow he's only been sacked 12 times all year, and he's been able to get the ball out of there that quickly, and I expect the 49ers to do exactly the same this weekend because they know the Eagles have guys that can get there, certainly on the left-hand side with Hassan Reddick going up against a second-year player. One other piece of news that hit yesterday, and I want your read on this, and I think that's all you can have at this point is a read. Zach Ertz got released by the Arizona Cardinals. Now he needs to go through waivers. He's got a contract that runs next year for big bucks, and he's had a big drop off this year. I think some of that is by choice by the Cardinals. They decided to want to develop the young tight end. You have to at least put the possibility out there that Zach's starting to lose a little bit, getting up there in age. I believe he will make it through waivers. I don't think anybody's claiming him and taking on that $11 million and or what he's owed for the rest of this year. So he's going to be a free agent, be able to choose wherever he wants to go, anywhere he wants to go. Unlike Shaq Leonard, where there's actually a choice to be made. Is there any choice? What the choice is with the Philadelphia Eagles as to whether they want to bring him back. Not that Zach Ertz is going to join the Dallas Cowboys or anybody else, is there?
Not the Dallas Cowboys, but I do think there is. Baltimore, to me, is the most obvious situation for a legitimate contender where it could have a large role. And Mark Andrews isn't coming back. And if it's just about, role, he's going to have a bigger role in Baltimore than he would have here. Dallas is going to be back next week. Not this week, but in Dallas. Ironically. So once he's back, what is he, the third tight end? Because he's not a blocker. And that's Jack Stoll's role. So is he better than Grant Calcaterra? Of course. And Grant's hurt as well. And we'll see how quickly he can come back. But is that what Zach wants, or does he want to be a meaningful contributor? Obviously, he loves Philadelphia. He's still a heavyweight in the community. The organization loves him. But does he want to play significant snaps? I don't know. Only Zach knows.
Right.
But I think Baltimore would be the better fit for that. Right now, people look at it. They could use him this week. They could use him this week. But next week ain't this week. And if Dallas does come back, he's not going to play more than Dallas Goedert. And then you remember the end. And one of the issues was because Dallas was the significantly better blocker, he had to play in line more than the Eagles wanted him to because he's so effective as a receiver as well, because Zach wasn't the greatest blocker in the world. So, part of the reason was they wanted to get Dallas more out as a flex receiver and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if the fit is all that great, but I get why people want it. And he's a great player, franchise grade. He's 10 receptions away from Harold Carmichael's franchise record. That would be a good story if he came back. But that's the other part of it. How often do the Eagles get the football to the backup tight end? Now, Zach Ertz is a heck of a lot better than as a receiver than, as I said, Grant Calcaterra or Jack Stoll. But how often are they going away from AJ and Devontae and Dallas Goedert and DeAndre Swift? So I think it's exciting, but I don't see the need. Like Shaq Leonard's a bigger need. I think it's more important if he's healthy, and that to me has everything to do with the doctors and all that kind of stuff. If he's healthy, Shaq Leonard can help in a significant role. I don't see a significant role as long as Dallas Goedert's back when he's supposed to be back.
Right. But here's the reason why I would be bullish on re-signing Zach Ertz. First thing that has to happen is there's got to be a sit down. Mostly Zach and Nick Sirianni, who seem to have had a good relationship before Zach got sent elsewhere. Howie to a lesser extent, but it's going to be on the coaches and their ability to get onto the same page with him. He has to accept the role as you just laid it out. Here's the deal. You're our third string tight end. Yes, that's right. Third string, because we're going to use Stoll for plays where we go too tight, where the responsibility is going to be blocking. Because Zach, let's be honest, you were in camp. He's a better blocker than you are. And we're going to ask our backup tight end to do significant blocking. So your role is going to be what it is. And it's going to be limited. And it's going to be third string. And you're going to get one on a good day, 2 targets. We want you to have that. We want you here for that. We want you on the roster rather than Grant Calcaterra. If you're good with that, if you look us in the eyes and say, I just want to be a Philadelphia Eagle. I want to be along for the ride. I think this team's going to win a Super Bowl. I need my second ring. If he can buy it, then I want him back. And as limited as it may be, as the big a necessity as it is, I don't care. I want Zach Ertz back on this team, but he has to be good with it. That's why they traded Zach Ertz last year, because he wasn't good with his role. So things change. He goes to Arizona. Not a great team, didn't accomplish much out there. He's coming back in a different situation. He's got to buy in. If he doesn't buy in, then you move on. Say, good luck in Baltimore. But if he wants to be here in the role as you described it, then I want Zach Ertz back. Sorry, Grant Calcaterra and or Albert.
Yeah, I don't.
Later, bye.
But this isn't about Grant Calcaterra or Alberto. I agree with you. But to me, it's about, and it's not even about Zach. I think, he'd be a good teammate. I think it was more, he obviously wanted to stay in his role. So part of it is, but I think it's fast forwarded enough to the point where he knows where he is in his career now. So I don't think that's an issue, but I think Baltimore offers a real opportunity. So I think it's going to be more about Zach, and does he want a bigger role, or does he just want to come home because it's home and he loves Philadelphia and he loves the community, right, and he wants to win a second? To me, it's Zach's decision. And if he wants just a role, if he wants to play, he should go to Baltimore because he has an opportunity to play in a significant way there. He's not, barring a second injury to Dallas Goedert when he comes back, that's not going to be here in Philadelphia.
All right, here's the way, if I were Howie and I was trying to sell him, because you want him back. Yeah, here's what I would project as your stats over the last 5 games, because he won't be coming into the league because I have 5 games left. 6 catches, 80 yards, maybe a TB, maybe not. That's about a 50-50 shot. You go to Baltimore, you're going to have 20-some-odd catches over the last 5 games, 190 yards, definitely a TD. What do you think that does to his earning power next year? Does putting up that much more statistics in the last 5 games in Baltimore as compared to minimal at best stats here in Philadelphia, is he really going to be a $5 million tight end instead of a $2.5 million tight end next year?
I don't even think it's about next year or the money. I mean, I don't know if he wants to retire and go out on top if the Eagles win a Super Bowl, something like that, the sentimentality of it. He's made a ton of money in his career. I don't even think it's about that. He's just a competitor who wants to play, typically. That's just it. I mean, one situation he can play a lot, and another situation he can't. To me, it's as simple as that. It's not about next year. He's obviously leaving Arizona for trying to get a contender, gave up a game check, according to NFL media, to do it. And there are only 2 spots, Philadelphia, for the obvious reasons, but they're mainly sentimentality reasons, and you got to be careful about that kind of stuff. With Baltimore, there's an actual opportunity to have a big role on what is a significant Super Bowl contender as well. I think they have a much tougher road than Philadelphia, but they're a significant contender as well. And I think if he wants to play and he wants to be involved, I think that's the better spot for him, to be honest.
We'll see what Zach says. I hope he prefers to come home and play for the Eagles, even if it's going to be in a limited role. If he's still that driven that he needs to play, needs to be out there on the field, we'll see if he can be a quick study and go in there and become Mark Andrews light in Baltimore. That's not going to be easy either. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. Mac Birds 365. I see ready to rock and roll with us. Up next is our guy Paul Domwich, 33rd team, JAKIB Sports Stat Pack already up for your perusal, getting ready for the big showdown game versus the 49ers Sunday.